From the world's most volatile region, conflicts over faith and boundaries. Stories of death, destruction, despair, and hope. WION brings you to the heart of the action. Incisive analysis, unrivaled perspective, and exclusive ground reports. Watch West Asia Post every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST with me, Radi Francis. Only on WION, World is One.
Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views, and analysis. WIONews.com. World is One.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Oliver Regan and these are the headlines. UK's strike wars continue. After the NHS nurses strike yesterday, the UK's biggest rail union and motorway workers begin their latest walkout that will last for 48 hours. Japan to begin $320 billion military build-up that will arm it with missiles capable of striking China and ready it for a sustained conflict as regional tensions and Russia's Ukraine invasion stoke war fears. Water supplies disrupted across the Ukrainian capital after a wave of Russian strikes, claims Kyiv's mayor. World's largest freestanding cylindrical aquarium bursts in Berlin, prompting around 100 emergency responders to rush to the scene in an inner-city leisure complex. The aquarium was home to around 1,500 exotic fish. Fernando Santos steps down as Portugal coach following their exit at the World Cup quarter-finals. He had been in charge of the team since 2014 and led them to the 2016 European Championship and the inaugural UEFA Nations League. UK strike wars continue. From an NHS nurse strike yesterday, it's rail and motorway workers striking today. Members of the UK's biggest rail union began their latest walkout at midnight last night. This one will last a full 48 hours. Just 1 in 5 trains are expected to run on Friday and Saturday, hitting services across England, Scotland and Wales. The RMT, UK's biggest rail union, says more than 40,000 workers across the network will strike, part of 14 train operating companies staging a series of 48-hour walkouts. Action began on the 13th and 14th of December and now starts again today through to Saturday night. Train operators said just 20% of normal services would be running between 7:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. on both Friday and Saturday. More rail strikes are scheduled early next year. The RMT has also issued an overtime ban for its members across the railway network from 18th of December to the 2nd of January. The ongoing disputes are centred around pay, working conditions and job security. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch said the union is sorry to inconvenience the public this Christmas, slamming the government for what he called a detrimental offer. He urged people to direct their anger and frustration at the government and railway employees. it's not just railway staff. Motorway workers, including traffic officers in northern England, are also walking out for the first time today. Bus drivers in the south and west London are on strike for 48 hours, although no roads will be closed. Any major incident could result in longer delays, though, with fewer control room staff and traffic officers available. Well, for more on this, our correspondent Alex Isaac joins us live from London. Alex, the strikes continue, and once again, the whole country is now suffering from a railway strike, and it really is grinding the country to a halt in what is one of the busiest times of the year.
Absolutely, and you rightly say it's not just the train strikes. Actually, like the buses, also some of them are striking. So some lines are striking. So it's really difficult to get around. And this weekend is the weekend before Christmas. It's the weekend when most people would be going out for their Christmas parties, potentially going out to buy presents for their loved ones, and really putting their money back into businesses which are in desperate need of that money since COVID made us all step away from going out and about. So not having transport specifically on this weekend will be a bit of a nightmare. And of course, the freezing weather doesn't help. It's -4 here at the moment, and it's going to get cold as we go into the night. So people are even making those journeys because they're going out in taxis and they're trying to get out and spend their money. It might be freezing and they may have difficulties, and therefore would lead to falls, and that potentially could lead to ambulances coming out and going into hospitals, which of course that they're also going to be on strike as well. So there isn't just one thing here. It is a whole host of issues that are going around through transport and throughout most of our civil services as well, that are really going to be detrimental to the UK, not just now at Christmas, but also into the new year. We're seeing a recession on the highlight. Our inflation isn't coming down that fast. All of these problems going on, and at the moment the public doesn't seem to be on side with the RMT at all right now. TSSA, who are also part of the unions that have been on strike, have accepted the pay increase from the government, but the RMT haven't. They said the talks are still open at the moment, and there is a whole week to go before the next strikes ahead on Christmas Eve. But it doesn't seem that Mick Lynch and the RMT are really looking to move forward so quickly to get it moving now, especially not for this weekend, which will be a real shame for everyone.
Alex, as you mentioned, the conditions as well, it's so cold in London, and there's worry, of course, if there's a big incident on the roads, that things are going to be slower because there's less people working. So it could actually bring an increased danger to some people in the country.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see behind me I'm on a junction here, and the traffic keeps coming because people are having to choose cars and taxis instead of public transport. There are a few buses running around, of course, and some of the tubes are working as well. But people need to get to work and they need to get to places. Not everyone has the luxury of working from home all the time, so they will need to be out and about. And as this is the final weekend, as I mentioned before Christmas, it is, usually this is a mayhem Friday anyway. People have gone out when it's freezing and they'll end up falling over, and because of the icy conditions, which is still prevalent on the streets here of London. So it will lead potentially to a lot of dangerous situations, and when there aren't going to be as many people, or the traffic is backed up everywhere, then obviously ambulances can't get through. So people must ensure that they take responsibility and take themselves safe places tonight. So if you are going out, make sure you wear sensible shoes and a good strong jacket.
Alex Isaac, live in London. Firstly, go and get warm, and secondly, many thanks for your insights. In the latest development in the corruption scandal involving Eva Kaili, a member of the European Parliament, her Italian partner has reportedly confessed his role in the Qatar graft scandal. According to a report by news agency Reuters, Francesco Giorgi has confessed to taking bribes from Qatar to influence the European Parliament decisions on the Gulf region. This has reportedly made a significant contribution to the probe underway by the Belgian investigating magistrates. Giorgi worked as an assistant to an Italian member of the European Parliament. Reports said he had told investigators that Kaili was not involved in the corruption scandal. Kaili was sacked from her role as Vice President of the European Parliament. has denied any role in alleged bribery, while Qatar has also denied any involvement in the corruption case. Earlier, Kaili's lawyer had suggested Georgie might have answers about the existence of the cash found at her home. A series of searches, at the homes and offices of politicians, lobbyists and assistants turned up around 1.6 million euros in cash. According to reports, 150,000 euros were found in Kaili's flat, 600,000 euros in her partner's home and 750,000 euros in her father's hotel room. Kaili, her partner, as well as ex-MEP Pier Antonio Panzeri and lobbyist Nicolo Figa Talamanca, are all charged with corruption, money laundering and organised crime. Meanwhile, in another blow, Kaili faces a second investigation and a vote to strip her of parliamentary immunity. Reports said Athens prosecutors opened an initial inquiry in parallel with the Belgian corruption case. The European chief prosecutor asked the parliament to strip Kaili her immunity from prosecution so that she can be investigated for a separate alleged misuse of funds assigned to members of the European Parliament to pay assistance. On Thursday, the European Parliament suspended all work on legislation linked to Qatar, and Parliament's president told the European Union leaders she would lead reforms to prevent a repeat of a criminal corruption scandal. Well, joining us live now is Peter Kleppe, Editor-in-Chief of Brussels Report and Policy Analyst of EU, Brexit and Eurozone. Peter, a significant development involving Francesco Giorgi. Give us the latest and how you see this scandal playing out.
Well, when it comes to this confession, we should not forget that the person who sort of confessed and thereby claimed that Eva Kaili is innocent is also the partner of Eva Kaili, and they have a child together, so he may have had every incentive to try to clear her. At the end of the day, we don't, of course, know for sure what happened, but this looks all incredibly bad. Does it not? The Belgian police presenting the cash notes just like some after some drug raid, and opening an investigation in quote-unquote organized criminal organization. I mean, this reflects very poorly on the European Parliament, and frankly, it's a bit of a public secret here in Brussels that a lot of this shady business is going on. There are all kinds of rules in place, and I'm sure you can improve them and maybe make them stricter in certain cases, but often the rules are actually quite strict already, and sadly, it's mostly the mentality among certain MEPs that allows these things to happen. The European Parliament is also notorious for being, very secretive when it comes to its own expenses. It's, for example, for years it refuses to disclose how MEPs are spending around 4,000 euro per month that they receive on top of their salary. They have a very dodgy second pension fund on top of their normal pension, and there's scandals and every so many years this returns, and in the end nothing happens.
Peter, the EU also holds itself up, though, very highly on an ethical basis. Just how damaging could this incident be to the entire institution?
One of the obsessions of the European Parliament is to tell the world what to do. And don't get me wrong, often their criticism on dictators is absolutely justified and even useful. But of course, it's not credible when they don't clean up their own house. The idea of a European Parliament is not bad. The idea is to keep the EU machinery in check. The European Union, the Commission, they have a lot of power. They have the monopoly to initiate legislation for 450 million Europeans, and a lot of those rules are being taken over. In the rest of the world, it's called the Brussels effect. And the European Parliament has a unique position to try to keep this machine in check. In practice, however, we see something different. The European Parliament is not a check on the machine. It's encouraging the machine to regulate even more fiercely. to spend even more money. Every year the European Parliament encourages the European Commission to spend even more. It's like if you have in a company, a group of an assembly of shareholders encouraging the CEO to spend even more. That does not make any sense. So somehow the system has failed to work. And frankly, I'm not convinced that the European Parliament is still useful. The idea was not bad, but perhaps we should just abolish it if it does not, fulfill the task that it has been entrusted with.
Many thanks. Peter Kleppe, Editor-in-Chief of Brussels Report and Policy Analyst of EU, Brexit and Eurozone. I'm sure you're in for a busy few days. Many thanks for your insights.
Thank you.
Despite battlefield setbacks, Russia is preparing for a major new offensive in Ukraine in the new year. Moscow still wants to conquer the entire country. The Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian army has said that it expects a fresh attack from the Russian troops in the early months of 2023. The Ukrainian general further said that Russia is preparing 200,000 fresh troops. Earlier, during a press briefing, another senior Ukrainian officer said that the Kremlin is seeking to turn the conflict into a prolonged armed confrontation.
Кремль усвідомлює, що у короткостроковій перспективі досягти перемоги у війні неможливо. Тому прагне перевести конфлікт у тривале збройне протистояння, спрямоване на виснаження України та наших партнерів.
A fresh barrage of Russian strikes have hit several cities across Ukraine today. The mayor of Kyiv has reported multiple explosions in the city's central districts earlier. Russian rockets also hit Kharkiv, damaging a warehouse in the area. The Ukrainian officials in that region said that Russia has conducted strikes on the civilian infrastructure.
Росія здійснює обстріл цивільної інфраструктури, як ви бачите, складські приміщення абсолютно пусті, жодного відношення до військових немає.
Meanwhile, explosions also went off in Ukraine's Kherson region. According to Ukrainian officials, 2 people were killed in the shelling. Ukraine's national grid operator also suffered a significant deficit, of electricity due to the Russian attacks. Russia has launched a barrage of missiles on Ukraine's energy infrastructure since October, disrupting power supplies and leaving people without heating in freezing winter conditions. The Russian Foreign Ministry has warned the United States against shipping Patriot air defense missiles to Ukraine. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia has said that the US deployment of Patriot missiles to combat Russian airstrikes would represent an escalation in the US's role in helping the Kyiv government fend off Russia's 10-month war and could entail possible consequences. However, the Russian military did not spell on what Moscow's response might be. In response, the Pentagon has clearly said that they will not allow Russia to dictate terms to them. Meanwhile, Russia has ruled out a Christmas ceasefire, and Ukraine has also dismissed the possibility of a ceasefire over the festive and New Year period. As on one side, Russia carried out one of the first major drone attacks in weeks. On the other side, Russia blamed the Ukrainian forces of staging the heaviest shelling attack in the Russian-controlled east. The war also rages on in eastern and southern parts of Ukraine.
Ukrainian forces staged their heaviest shelling attack in years in the country's Russian-controlled east on Thursday. That's according to Moscow-installed officials there. The attacks came as both sides ruled out a Christmas truce in a war that's been raging for almost 10 months. The Russian-backed mayor of Donetsk city said 40 Ukrainian rockets were fired from Grad multiple rocket launchers in the early hours. An apartment block was damaged and a hospital where Marina works.
There was a woman lying here. Just imagine all that debris flying her way. You can see some blood here. She was taken into surgery. They sewed up and bandaged the wound on her leg.
Local resident Lyudmila Butsenko sustained a head injury.
I heard a loud rumble. and I saw something like a big fireball falling right in front of the balcony. It all started coming in onto my bed. Glass, bits of bricks, all of it.
Meanwhile, Russian forces kept up shelling and airstrikes along the entire eastern front line. Fighting continues to rage largely in Ukraine's east and south, with little movement on either side. Ukrainian Army Brigadier General Alexei Gromov said Russia was digging in for a long war and still wanted to conquer the whole country.
The Kremlin realizes that in the short-term perspective, it is impossible to achieve victory in the war, thus seeking to turn the conflict into a prolonged armed confrontation aimed at exhaustion of Ukraine and our partners.
Moscow and Kiev are not currently holding talks to end Europe's biggest conflict since World War II. On Wednesday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said a Christmas ceasefire was not on the agenda, the same day that Kiev suffered its first major drone attack in weeks. 2 administrative buildings were hit, but air defences largely repelled the attack. Russia denies deliberately attacking civilians, while Ukraine says Russian strikes constitute a war crime.
Fernando Santos has stepped down as Portugal's head coach following their World Cup quarter-final loss to surprise package Morocco. Roma manager Jose Mourinho is one of the leading candidates to take over. Santos had been contracted till Euro 2024, but the Portuguese Football Federation said that this was the right moment to start a new cycle. The 68-year-old took the bold decision to drop the country's captain and all-time leading goal-scorer in international football, Cristiano Ronaldo, in the knockout rounds of the World Cup. Santos left Ronaldo out of the playing 11 for their clash with Switzerland after he was unhappy with his reaction to being substituted during the final group game against South Korea. Ronaldo's replacement, Goncalo Ramos, scored a hat-trick in that match, and Ronaldo was once again on the bench against Morocco in what turned out to be Santos' final game in charge of the country. Santos has insisted that he has no regrets about his decision to drop Ronaldo and says that he always did what was best for the team. The 68-year-old spent 8 years in charge of Portugal and guided them to their first major title at Euro 2016 and followed that up by winning the inaugural UEFA Nations League in 2019. Portugal will begin the process of appointing a new head coach, and reports claim that Jose Mourinho is the federation's #1 target to take over. They would even reportedly entertain a unique deal that could see him continuing his club role at Roma with international duties. Mourinho is a 2-time Champions League winner, but has never managed an international team. He was in Portugal for 3 friendly matches, but remained silent when he was questioned about succeeding Santos. Indians continue to show their love for biryani, as for the 7th consecutive year, it has been revealed as the top most ordered dish in the country. According to Swiggy's annual trends report, biryani set new records with 2.28 orders per second on the online food delivery platform. Other top ordered dishes this year were masala dosa and samosa. The report also mentions that there was an uptake in orders for foreign dishes, with Italian ravioli, which is a kind of pasta, and Korean bibimbap, a rice dish, being the most popular food choices. Well, that's all from your WION Live broadcast from London. I've been Oliver Regan, and this is WION.
There are many other
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort.